The term battle rifle or main battle rifle is used to identify a self-loading military-style rifle that feeds ammunition through a detachable box magazine and fires a full-power rifle cartridge. Don't confuse a battle rifle with an assault rifle. Even though they're both self-loading military-style rifles with detachable magazines, the assault rifle fires an intermediate power cartridge like the 5.56, while the battle rifle fires a full power cartridge like the 7.62 by 51. So the difference is in the power of the ammunition that they fire. And I'm really sorry, guys, since the M1 Garand and most of the FN49s don't have detachable box magazines. I feel that they really don't meet the definition of this class of rifle. So, unfortunately, they won't be included in this video. I absolutely love the Garand and the FN49, so maybe I'll do a separate video on these great rifles later, but I'm not going to cover them here. Several different early battle-style rifles were in limited and experimental use prior to the end of World War II. Like the Fedorov and the FG-42. The SVT-40 got lots of use, but had many issues. And the battle rifle really didn't become commonplace until after World War II, especially when NATO countries standardized the 7.62 by 51 cartridge as the cartridge of choice to fight communism and murderous dictators the world over. The battle rifle was a rifle that was light enough to carry, fast enough for close quarters fighting, could be reloaded fast without using stripper clips, and still allowed highly trained soldiers with excellent marksmanship skills the ability to engage targets at longer ranges. Much like the Mauser rifle in the bolt-action world, many rifle designs were copied and produced all over the world. And it's for this reason that we'll be discussing rifle families rather than specific rifles. Immediately after World War II, France began developing a self-loading battle rifle to replace the MAS-36 bolt-action rifle. The results of that research and development put the MAS-49 and the MAS-49-56 battle rifle into the hands of French soldiers and legionnaires, who used this rifle in brutal combat for the next 40 years. I actually consider the MAS-49 to be the most underrated battle rifle ever used. The MAS-49 and later the MAS-49-56 variant was the favorite weapon of the French Army and the French Foreign Legion, who used it to fight some of history's most brutal battles against amazing odds and inhospitable places like the Sahara Desert and the jungles of Indochina. When the world wanted a battle to happen off the books, the Foreign Legion was eager to answer the call. The MAS-49 and 49-56 was an utterly reliable weapon with hardly any moving parts, and its impingement design prevented fouling of the bolt. These things would run for decades in the world's worst environments with nothing more than an occasional wipe down with an oily rag. Even though France was a main NATO partner, the MAS-49 didn't use the standard NATO 7.62 by 51 NATO cartridge. Instead, it used a proprietary 7.5 by 54 French cartridge, which is basically a softer shooting .308. I got lucky with my MAS rifles about 27, 28 years ago. I bought this whole ammo can full of genuine 7.5 French. And for surplus ammo, it actually shoots pretty good too. The MAS-49 battle rifle is probably one of the most reliable direct impingement battle rifles ever made. The design made it just as accurate as an AR, while having the reliability of an AK. And it was probably one of the easiest of all the battle rifles to clean and maintain. All I know is that when Legionnaires claim that a rifle is their favorite, it's pretty wise to listen. If you want to load and shoot your MOS 49 rifle for recreational use, I highly recommend that you get an aftermarket firing pin. Also, if you reload, you can use 308 bullets to load your own for this, as well as new privy brass. The FAL, often just called the FAL, is the epitome of a battle rifle. What the AK-47 was to comblock countries, the FAL was to the rest of the planet. It's been used by over 90 countries to fight communism and win freedom from brutal dictatorships. Because of this, it's earned the nickname the right arm of the free world and became the symbol of the fight against the oppression of communism that was threatening the world at the time. The FAL was produced by several different countries under several different names like the L1A1, the MBEL, the STG-58, and the R1. No other battle rifle has been used so extensively in so many different places as the FAL. Almost rivaling the track record of the Kalashnikov assault rifle. It was the first true battle rifle to use all synthetic furniture in its normal configuration. The FAL was designed with a gas piston system that kept running in harsh conditions and required very little maintenance. The FAL featured one of the best adjustable gas systems ever created, allowing users to shoot an endless variety of 7.62 by 51 NATO ammunition from around the world. And a lot of this ammunition was loaded to drastically different pressures. So unlike most rifles up to this point, the FAL was not ammunition specific and was a true one-size-fits-all weapon. But the FAL isn't perfect. Because of its loose tolerances and the tilting bolt design, it definitely isn't the most accurate battle rifle. In fact, I'd rate it towards the bottom of the battle rifles in accuracy. And to further confuse matters, it came in metric and inch variants, and some of the parts aren't interchangeable. But most people's real love affair with the FAL is in its ergonomics. Like how a 1911 pistol feels perfect in your hands, that's how an FAL feels on your shoulder. It just feels right. It points perfect, has the right weight and balance, and all of the controls are basically perfectly placed. I honestly don't think the ergonomics of the FAL have ever really been bested. The bottom line is that the FAL was involved in some of the most brutal warfare ever conducted on this planet and emerged unscathed. It was precise and refined enough to meet the needs of an expert rifleman, yet simple and reliable enough for an untrained partisan to use effectively. Based solely off results in the field, you'd have to conclude that the FAL was possibly the greatest battle rifle of all time. The CETME Model 58 was designed by a German engineer and produced in Spain. It really revolutionized the arms industry by perfecting the roller delayed blowback system. The CETME rifle spawned production of the German-made H&K G3, which became the battle rifle of choice for over 40 countries around the world. The G3 design later trickled into civilian and the law enforcement market as the HK41, HK91, SR9, and now the PTR91. The G3 family of rifles began taking much of FAL's market share away. It's made out of simple stamped steel and molded plastic parts, making production much cheaper. And its modular design makes it an armorer's dream, makes an armorer's job extremely easy to maintain this rifle. The modularity of this rifle, also made it easy to create many variants of the rifle, such as the marksman rifle, paratrooper rifle, and marine environment rifles. And these rifles, all the parts mix and match. But let's be honest, the CETME and G3's real claim to fame is its extreme reliability. Yeah, the FAL was also a reliable rifle, but the user needed to mess with the gas adjustment to make it reliable for different types of ammunition they were firing. The G3's roller delayed blowback system in fluted chamber will reliably extract any ammunition with these, even with an extremely dirty rifle. In fact, this rifle extracts brass so violently that it damages the casing to the point that it often makes reloading impossible. The high-quality diopter sights and high-quality barrels on most of these rifles make them pretty damn accurate. So these actually do have a reputation for being very accurate rifles with the right ammunition. But these CETME family of rifles aren't perfect by any means. They lack a last round bolt hole open feature, which many consider mandatory on a combat rifle. Also, the ergonomics are a little bit off compared to the FAL and an AR-10, and many people just really hate the charging handle mechanism on the CETME based design. And I have to admit, the trigger on these is atrocious. Pulling the trigger on a CETME or a G3 based rifle is often compared to flushing a toilet. But the positive attributes of these rifles, which are the ease of manufacture, the extreme reliability, and the modularity, easily outweigh its faults. These rifles have outlasted the M14 and the FAL in service life and are the only battle rifle still used as a main battle rifle by modern militaries. With the FAL family of rifles becoming the rifle of choice for the free world militaries, the United States decided to develop their own battle rifle in the popular new 7.62 by 51 NATO cartridge. America and our military really had a love affair with the M1. So naturally, they favored a rifle design that was very similar to the Garand. There's a ton of debate as to whether or not the U.S. military rifle trials were rigged against the FAL, but in the end, U.S. soldiers were being issued the M14. The M14 had a very short life as a main battle rifle. It had several issues in real combat conditions, including swelling wood stocks, high maintenance requirements, and the fact that it was pretty uncontrollable in full auto fire. Even when the first synthetic stocks were issued, those seemed to be fragile and often broke in combat conditions. The military had hoped that the M14 would fill the roles of both the M1 and the BAR, but they were pretty disappointed. In 1962, the U.S. Department of Defense deemed the M14 to be completely inferior to the M1 Garand and began working on a replacement for the M14 before it was even deployed to Vietnam as a main battle rifle in 1965. Even though the M14 had a very short life as a main battle rifle, it actually remained in service for a long time. Like the A-10 Warthog, every time the U.S. military would shelve the M14, they ended up dusting them off and putting them back into the field for very specialized tasks. In the end, the legacy of the M14 in combat isn't really as a main battle rifle, but rather as a designated marksman rifle. As warfare left the jungles after the Cold War and migrated to the deserts and cities of the Middle East, rifles more suitable for long-range engagements and specialized squad designated marksman roles became a necessity. The M14 was reborn as the M21, M25, and finally the EBR. A study conducted by the U.S. Army found that over half the engagements in Afghanistan occurred at over 300 meters, and that the 5.56 cartridge was ineffective at those extended ranges. So thousands of M14s were dusted off, accurized by skilled Army armorers, and sent to the Middle East. The M14 family of rifles turned out to be well suited for desert warfare, and the 7.62 by 51 cartridge had great punch at extended ranges, and the weapon platform itself proved to be reasonably reliable in dry, dusty conditions. With match-grade barrels, improved parts, top quality bedded synthetic or aluminum chassis stocks, a trigger job, and optics, the M14 successfully filled the role as a designated marksman rifle. But as you know, people follow me on YouTube for my honest, no BS reviews. For this reason, I'm going to piss a lot of people off with the following opinion. I believe that the M14 was one of the worst of all the main battle rifles. The stock design really isn't optimal for full auto fire. The wood furniture on these things swells and rots in wet, humid conditions, and the bedding on these things get worse and worse every time you break the rifle down for maintenance. Having a safety that requires you to stick your finger inside the trigger guard isn't very safe at all, in my opinion. I challenge you to go out and hold an FAL or an AR-10 and try to lie to me and tell me that the M14 has good ergonomics, because it really doesn't. The M14 also has the least modularity of any of the battle rifles. In the 1960s, the government performed accuracy tests on several different rifle platforms. They actually found that the M1 Garand, Stoner rifles, and even the AK-47 were more accurate than the M14s being issued at the time. Shooting an old M14 and even a new Springfield M1A, I also find that shot dispersion is greater with this rifle platform than any other platforms. My M1 Garands are certainly a lot more accurate than any M1A or M14 that I've ever fired. You can make an M14 or M1A a reasonably accurate and modular rifle, but it takes a lot of work and money to do that. Initially M14s were put back into service as DMRs because the SR25 platforms were extremely expensive. But, after building an M14 into an EBR, you ended up with a weapon that was more expensive, less accurate, less modular, harder to maintain, and was significantly heavier than an SR25. So, is the old polishing a turd analogy fitting here? I'll let you be the judge of that. But let's face it, the M14's real legacy is one of nostalgia. Some guys feel that plastic and aluminum rifles just have no soul, and that there's nothing that can replace good old wood and steel. To a certain extent, I agree with these people, and you'll notice that most of my hunting rifles in my hunting videos fit this description pretty well. The M14 and M1A have the same sights and trigger as the Garand, making them, making it seem like being close to an old lover every time an old timer gets prone to shoot one of these things. So, in my opinion, even though the M14 family of rifles aren't the greatest battle rifle, they are the most elegant and nostalgic of all the battle rifles.
In my opinion, Eugene Stoner was a genius firearm designer on the same level as John Moses Browning. Stoner came up with something completely new and revolutionized military arms development with the AR family of rifles. It seems like every time there was an issue with the Stoner design, it was because some other engineers thought they were smarter than him and made changes, which almost always inevitably backfired. Stoner's AR-10 battle rifle, chambered in 7.62 by 51, was first introduced by Armalite in 1956, and it was adopted as a main battle rifle by several countries. Ironically enough, the US military never initially adopted it because it was late to the trials and didn't really have the look they wanted. But Stoner's scaled down AR-15, chambered in 5.56, did gain approval. The AR-10 rifle was way ahead of its time. It was light, impervious to weather, handled recoil exceptionally, was highly modular, easy to maintain, extremely ergonomic, and could be manufactured cheaply, and it was exceptionally accurate. It was the birth of a class of rifles that most of the world would utilize well into the 21st century. The AR-10 family of rifles eventually found their way back to the US military as designated marksman rifles in forms such as the SR-25 and M110.
The real lineage of the AR-10 family, though, is in its popularity in the civilian market as self-defense, target, and hunting rifles. AR-10s can be purchased chambered in everything from 243 to 300 Win Mag, making them one of the most diverse and useful rifle platforms for civilians. With free-floated barrels and modern bolt carrier groups, AR-10 clones are probably the most accurate semi-automatic rifles in the world right now. Although Kalashnikov rifles are better known for their assault rifles like the AK-47 and the AKM, there were some Kalashnikov battle rifle designs chambered in full-power rifle cartridges.
The most famous of these rifles is the M77, which was a true battle rifle and introduced by Yugoslavia in 1977. The M77 was basically an AKM chambered in the 7.62 by 51 NATO cartridge. Yugoslavia was an odd country during the Cold War because its communist dictator Tito played both sides to its advantage. And in the same spirit, Yugoslavia had a Soviet rifle chambered in a NATO round. A couple of other countries also adopted the M77 as their main battle rifle. And the modern MO5N2 variant is alive and well today.
And as a side note, COMBLOC countries didn't completely abandon full-power rifle cartridges with the birth of the AK-47. In fact, Warsaw Pact countries were the first to recognize the importance of the designated marksman concept. Rifles such as the Dragunov and PSL, chambered in the hard-hitting 7.62 by 54R round, were used very effectively in combat and still are today. Of course, the PSL, like this one, was developed by Romania after the Soviet Union cut them off for their refusal to invade Czechoslovakia. These PSLs are used today all over the Middle East by terrorists and those fighting the terrorists. And eventually, Kalashnikov-based rifles, chambered in full-power .308, became popular in the civilian market. For instance, this Saiga in .308 was very popular in its day, and I've even taken out this Vepr Hunter and shot pigs with it. So even these full-power magazine-fed semi-auto Kalashnikov designs are very popular in the civilian market today. The FN SCAR family of battle rifles are universally considered to be the next generation battle rifle. The SCAR-H, SCAR-H Tactical Precision Rifle, and SCAR-17 are chambered for the NATO 7.62 by 51 cartridge. The SCAR is a lightweight, rugged, reliable, accurate, and highly modular rifle that addresses many of the issues that past battle rifles suffered from.
The SCAR is currently being used by over 30 countries, but its most prominent role has been in combat use by the United States Special Forces. The SCAR-H has seen extensive heavy combat in Afghanistan, and the military generally holds the weapons platform in high regard. There's lots of first-hand accounts all over the internet by Navy SEALs and Army Rangers who use the rifles in actual combat. Most accounts are very positive, but some really didn't like the platform, generally because of the reciprocating charging handle. One thing is for sure though, if you study firearms enough, you'll know that no platform will ever please everybody. But SEALs seem to have a little leeway in choosing their firearms for a mission, and it seems like a lot of them are still picking the SCAR-H when they have a choice. But reality is these guys will kick ass with anything. And even though the US doesn't technically utilize the SCAR-H as a main battle rifle, there are many countries around the world that do.
So I know you're asking yourself, how is the SCAR-H better than any of the other battle rifles? Well, first of all, it has a folding stock. Pretty damn convenient. And the stock is fully adjustable for length of pull and for cheek weld. So this is a very versatile stock. Next, the SCAR is probably the most modular battle rifle ever made, even letting the user change barrels and calibers if they want to. And like the modern M4, it has endless possibilities for mounting all kinds of accessories on it. And this rifle is super simple and easy to break down without tools for maintenance. It also, in my opinion, has the least amount of recoil and the lightest weight of all the battle rifles. Between this unique bolt carrier design and this muzzle brake, the full power SCAR 17 really feels like you're shooting an AR-15. I'm serious, this thing has almost no recoil. It also features a gas piston design that keeps the bolt really clean and lets the gun run cooler for reliability during prolonged use. The SCAR is also the first truly ambidextrous battle rifle. You know, it has controls on both sides of the receiver, and it even has the ability to switch the charging handle between the left and right side of the receiver. I mean, how cool is that? You know, and the ergonomics of this rifle are absolutely fantastic. You know, with a charging handle that's light years easier to operate than the rear-mounted charging handle on the AR platform. You know, even the trigger guard is enlarged for the use with gloved hands. I mean, this is a very ergonomic platform. Optics mounting is absolutely awesome with the SCAR because it has a true one-piece rail running along the whole length. So you never have any misalignment issues or have to use cantilever mounts like you do sometimes with the AR platform. And lastly, the accuracy is simply amazing on this rifle for being so damn light. You know, once I added a nice Geasley trigger and this sweet little Night Force scope on it, it easily shoots under 1 MOA with surplus M118LR ammo. And it shoots much better with my own hand loads. And like with any of my objective reviews, now I'm going to go over some of the potential negatives of the SCAR platform. Firstly, the factory FN trigger absolutely sucks on these. When you change it out for a better trigger, it seems like a completely different rifle. I really like the Geasley triggers in these. Next is the reciprocating charging handle. You know, yes, it does move when you fire it, just like an M1 Garand, an M14 or an AK-47 does. You know, I've shot Garands, M1As, and Kalashnikov rifles for decades, so a reciprocating charging handle doesn't bother me at all. But some folks, especially the ones who are only familiar with the AR platform, they can't stand the reciprocating charging handle. You know, the guy that wants to hold their rifle like this while they shoot, you know, probably isn't going to like this rifle, you know, but I don't hold a rifle like that, so it isn't an issue for me. Just be mindful that if a reciprocating handle bothers you, don't waste your money on a SCAR because you're not going to like it. Also, the heavy-ass bolt on these rifles that mitigates recoil so well can also be hard on optics. So if you plan to put optics on your SCAR, buy top-tier optics. The SCAR has the potential to absolutely destroy cheap scopes and red dots. So trust me on this. If you watch my hunting videos, you know that I shoot a lot of really big recoiling rifles like the 458 lot. So I understand the value of quality optics. So on this rifle, it wears Night Force optics. And lastly, the awesome PWS muzzle brake that does such a great job mitigating recoil on this rifle is also very loud. You know, just it's simple physics. The better a muzzle brake works, the louder it's going to be. And this is a very loud muzzle brake because it works so well. So this isn't the rifle you want to be shooting without good hearing protection. We constantly hear from so-called small arms experts that the battle rifle concept is completely dead. Yet, we're still using them and even developing new ones. So, the battle rifle isn't dead after all. It just took a while for it to find its niche. Although battle rifles will probably never be considered the main issue weapon of our military anymore, they've proven to be the best fit for the designated marksman role, and even superior in battlefield conditions that require longer engagement distances. Accurized battle rifles have also become favorites in civilian circles for target shooting, hunting, and even personal defense. Whether you like the feel of classic wood and steel, or you like the modularity of a more modern rifle to customize to your liking, Americans will always embrace rifles chambered in full power cartridges. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it entertaining. Please realize that I kept things very brief in order to keep this video from running too damn long. So, as always, thanks for watching and subscribe if you like my content.